This is the electromagnetic field. We have something called gyromagnetic precession of every magnet. This means that the magnetic field is wobbling as it's turning. So there is a pole star currently at the center, but soon we will have a new pole star. And that is what they call the axial tilt or the wobble of the Earth, but it's the wobble of the dome. So as this is turning, it's also wobbling. Okay? So this means that Capricorn will now be above the equator and Cancer will be below the equator, because this is happening. This dome rotates every day, but it wobbles every 25,920 years. This dome will do a full wobble after 25,920 years, where each zodiac will get a chance to be behind the sun during the spring equinox. When the sun rises in the spring, as it rises in the east, not north or southeast, when the sun comes towards you due east in the springtime, what sign is behind the sun? Each sign will get a turn. Every 2,160 years, a new sign gets to be behind the sun. That's called the precession of the equinox due to gyromagnetic precession of every single magnet.
All is atom.
So yes, those pole stars repeat over time. The King's Chamber points directly to Polaris, but Thuban will take that place again in 12,000 years. Magnetic fields are measured by magnetic flux. So you can read the pressure of the magnetic field with a Gauss meter. So magnetism is pressure mediation at its core. The magnetic fluctuation of a field, the word flux has to do with fluidity and fluid dynamics. There's something called rain oculus at Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, and it shows you how fluid dynamics better explains the pole star shift while the stars remain fixed relative to each other. The water is rotating around a center while it's wobbling, and that's because all matter is spirit in disguise, because a hydrogen atom is just the ether in dynamic polarization against itself. So what the atom is doing is what the whole body of water is doing, which is what the whole earth is doing. The atom is just an electromagnetic field cycling at 1 trillion cycles per second, so it gives the illusion of solidity. All physicality is sustained by motion, and all atoms are polarized with the north and south pole. The atom is an oscillating pulse perturbation with the north and south pole. It's polarized. It's just a reciprocating precessional hyperboloid because it's repelling and attracting out of both sides. So it's reciprocating as it's precessing. And this is because all atoms are polarized with a north and south pole, but it's actually just the inverse of counter space, as we talked about last time. This is the plane of inertia, and north and south is just opposite ends of that counterspatial disk. The inner volume of every atom is magnetodielectricity, which is magnetism and dielectricity. Magnetism is the repelling force, and dielectricity is the attracting force. Magnetism is right-turning centrifugal divergence, and dielectricity is left-turning centripetal convergence. Magnetism radiates out from the central point. That's why magnetism is radiation. And dielectricity gravitates towards the center. Dielectricity is gravitation. Electricity, therefore, magnetism carries electricity. All magnets have an electromagnetic field. It's an electromagnetic field because the magnetic field is carrying the electricity. Electricity is the hybrid of magnetism and dielectricity. When you have a magnet, it is a coherent field. It's coherent because energy is radiating from the north into the south. If it's radiating out of the north and into the south, then it's gravitating into the south. It's radiating, which means it's releasing out of the north. It doesn't radiate back to the center, it gravitates back to the center. It radiates out of the north and south, therefore it gravitates into the north and south. This is why you can attract and repel out of both sides of a magnet. You can even attract into the sides of the magnet because there is a mid-pressure above and a mid-pressure below. So not only does the magnetic field start at the neutral point and become positive, neutralizes or calibrates again, then becomes negative, neutral, positive, neutral, negative. The energy is cycling around the North Pole axis, and as this is happening, it is creating the three-dimensional toroid that the atom is. The magnetic field is giving the atom its structure based on the toroidal geometry that the magnetic field must take in order to sustain itself perpetually and efficiently. The magnetic field viewed from the top is displaying the flower of life because this geometry is necessary, perfect proportionality and proper distribution of energy. That's the hexagon at the North Pole of Saturn. It's the Star of David, the Star of Israel. It's the hexagon or the hexagram, which represents balance, male and female, masculine, feminine, positive and negative. the torus and the hyperbola. The torus is here, it's the donut, and the hyperbola would be the hourglass or the árbol that you see. The branches and the roots are giving you the magnetic field. The M is for magnetism, not McDonald's, and the W is for woman, as this is for man. So you have two mid pressures and two high pressures. North and south high pressure, north and south mid pressure. Right hand rule of magnetism. All four force vectors are going one direction. The atom is an oscillating pulse perturbation of the medium. It's a reciprocating precessional hyperboloid, an atomic dynamo of magnetism and dielectricity collectively. Yes, you have a high pressure that starts from the neutral point, becomes positive, neutralizes, becomes negative, neutral, positive, neutral, negative. This is spring, summer, fall, winter. Well, this also happens at the mid pressure. You have spring, summer, fall, winter. And as this is cycling, we were able to make a hydrogen atom by guiding 4 ultra-high frequency laser beams to a single point. Therefore, hydrogen atoms are compound low-energy cyclic circuits. These are cyclic circuits. So, Aries is a fire sign, Taurus is an earth sign, Gemini is an air sign, and Cancer is a water sign. So from Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, etc. The calendar is a cylinder. This is the side view, and this would be the top view. And the dome turns every year. We get our seasons, and we also get the structure of our Earth with a dome above us. Connect this cylinder or tube into itself, and you make a donut. So as the sun goes through the zodiacs, which gives us our seasons throughout the year, the dome itself is turning. The energy of our atoms are cycling while circling the center, like a dog on a leash. Which brings us to the Ouroboros, snake eating its tail. The entire atom is moving in one direction. The dome is turning left to right because Aries rises first, then Taurus, then Gemini, then Cancer, then Leo, then Virgo, then Scorpio, then Sagittarius, then Capricorn, then Aquarius, then Pisces, etc. Look at this from the top. Aries rises first as the dome turns, then Cancer, then Libra, then Capricorn. You will never see Cancer below the equator, and you will never see Capricorn above the equator. Cancer is always above the green line, which is the equator. Capricorn is always below the green line, which is the equator, as this dome turns. So Capricorn's always making bigger circles, and Cancer's making smaller circles as this belt hula hoops around the North Pole. So here you can see how the sun is going from Capricorn up to Aries, up to Cancer, then it's eventually going to go back down to Libra, then back down to Capricorn. This is north of the equator, this is the equator, this is south of the equator. The three tropics are always 23.4 degrees north or south of the equator. The Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Aries and Libra, the Tropic of Capricorn. Aries and Libra are both on the 0 degrees of the equator. You can think of the luminaries as ornaments, where the North Star or Polaris is the top of the Christmas tree. When the sun is in Cancer, it would be like an ornament near the top of the tree. So as the tree spins, these ornaments are going to make small circles, small rings. Where if the sun was in Capricorn, when the sun makes its way to Capricorn, as the dome turns, the sun will be making bigger loops, giving Australia winter. Now these planets have a certain order where it goes Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Moon, Mercury, and Venus are the three feminine planets, and they're closer to the Earth, where Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are the three masculine planets. They're further away from the Earth. The sun is always between these 6 planets, and these are the 7 visible luminaries. So when the sun is in Cancer, it's actually higher than it would be when it's in Capricorn. For example, when the sun is in Cancer, it's going to be here, but when it's in Capricorn, it's going to be lower. So when the sun is in Cancer, it'll be up here, and when the sun is in Capricorn, it'll be down here. And that goes for all the planets. When the Saturn is in Capricorn, it's going to be lower than when it's in Cancer. It will be higher. The Ouroboros snake eating its tail, we don't actually see snakes eating their own tails in nature. It's not something that you actually see. It's a metaphor, it's an analogy, it's actually symbolic. For example, a black hole is not just absorbing everything at its center. A black hole is not just absorbing everything at its center, it is also releasing millions of tons of hydrogen out of the North and South Pole. And it's also attracting all of the matter into its plane of inertia. So this snake eating its tail represents the plane of inertia where all matter is being sucked into, such as the galactic disk of the Milky Way galaxy, into the galactic core, the black hole. Well, not many people know that the black hole is not just sucking everything in, it's also releasing energy. So people get mixed up and think that an explosion is energy when that's the release of energy. The word oro means urine in Greek. So Ouroboros can be looked at as the urine boros, the urine cycle. The urine cycle in your body is the same as the water cycle on Earth. Ocean becomes a cloud, cloud becomes rain, rain becomes a river, river becomes the ocean. This water is being recycled just as when you, at the end of a month of eating pure fruits and vegetables, your urine is just going to be excess water that your body doesn't need at the moment. It's never going to be waste if you don't consume waste. This is the ecliptic, or the path of the sun, which is the same size as the equator. It has to be, obviously. The sun is either 23.4 degrees north or 23.4 degrees south. Aries and Libra are both 0 degrees on the equator. So here's our final lesson. These are two magnets, and this is magnetic repulsion. These two magnets are repelling because when you have north to north, see, if I turn this upside down, you will see that if I were to bring this next to it, then I can stack them on top of each other. Then you would have a coherent field. Then they would be magnetic attraction. The reason it's magnetic repulsion is because the magnetic field is right turning as it goes out, right turning as it goes out, and this one is right turning as it goes out, right turning as it goes out. Because all atoms are polarized, all magnets are polarized with the north and south pole, but it's just the inverse of counter space. Here's counter space. So it's right turning going out, right turning going left. If you have a magnet and break it down to a million pieces, each atom is a magnet. Each atom has a north and south pole. So therefore, each atom looks like this. The atoms that make up this magnet are all stacked up on top of each other, where they're not repelling each other, but they're attracted to each other. So all the north poles of every atom are pointed upward, and when you point all the atoms up inside the object, you get a magnet. For example, these are the atoms inside of your magnet. If all the atoms are pointing upward, it becomes a magnet. That's a magnet because all the north poles are facing up instead of having some of them face down. And sometimes they start facing sideways. If they're facing all directions, you don't have a coherent field, and this object will not have a magnetic field. But once they all point upwards, then guess what? You have a magnetic field now. That's it. A magnet is a giant atom, and an atom is a tiny magnet. So because this field is going like this and it's curling around, if you have a pole here and the magnetic field is curling around it and doing this, and then you have a pole up here and that one is doing this, those arrows are going to hit each other. They're not going to spiral into each other and continue as one spiral. They're going against each other, so therefore they repel. What's happening is the spirals are going opposite directions instead of the same direction, to where those spirals merge. So now, instead of having two magnets on top of each other, that one magnet doesn't have two poles anymore. See, that's why Ken Wheeler says there is no north and south pole, because if you connect two magnets, if you flip this, the top magnet becomes the north pole, the bottom magnet becomes the south pole, and now between those two magnets, you have a plane of inertia. That just became, these two magnets become a coherent field. So therefore, when you put your root chakra on the earth, you become one magnet. All is atum. Your atoms, the first man's name was Adam, and the whole earth is a giant atom because it has a magnetic field, and a magnet is a giant atom. The Egyptians said all is atum, and today we still say that everything is made up of atoms, but the current model of the atom is incorrect. They can't explain how the electron doesn't run out of energy Just like a satellite should run out of energy and crash into the Earth, why doesn't the electron crash into the center of the nucleus of an atom? All scientists and physicists today will agree the momentum, the position, and the path of a particle cannot be predicted between measurements because the electron is not a particle. It is a whirlpool of energy, simultaneous fountain of energy coming out of the nucleus. All matter is spirit in disguise. All physicality is sustained by motion, and if it doesn't move, it returns to its primordial state, which is rest and stillness. We don't live in an electric universe. Electricity does not stand on its own. Magnetism carries electricity. We live in a magnetodielectric universe, not an electromagnetic universe. Nikola Tesla didn't like electricity. He said Hertzian technology actually hurts you and ages you. See, we were able to make a hydrogen atom with 4 ultra high frequency laser beams, which is low energy. High frequency is like tapping water really fast, but that's low energy. High energy is like slapping water or doing a cannonball. An atom is high frequency, low energy, like tapping water. Light is measured in cycles per second. That's how many cycles you're doing, is how fast you're tapping the water, where magnetism is volts per second, and that's like doing cannonballs.